It is championship week. PIAA football championships coming up in, under 48 hours from now. We'll begin our inaugural coverage of the PIAA Radio Network coverage of the state championship football games. 2 on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. And that means it is time to preview the 6 games that we're going to be seeing this weekend. You're going to hear the word rematch a whole heck of a lot over the next hour as we talk here, and also over the course of those 3 days. I'm James Dodson, part of the wonderful crew we have put together here for the state championships for the PIAA Radio Network. Joining us tonight, Eric Thomas, Eric Epler, and Bob McCool joining us here for the fun. We'll get a chance to chat with everybody, but first I want to give the floor over to Mr. E.T. himself, Eric Thomas. Big reason why this PIAA Radio Network is in fruition and why we're being able to do this coming up this weekend. Eric, big thanks to you to make this happen.
Yeah, this was a long time coming, James. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for coming on tonight, and for my partner Bob McCool, I appreciate him jumping on board too. This was a project I tried putting together starting back in December. I mean, literally the Monday after our state finals last year, I was talking to Tim Stride, who's with the OSA out in Ohio. He's the gentleman that runs the radio network out there, and he kind of gave me the guidance for it and the blueprint for it, and told me what we needed to look at as far as putting it together. There's been some, it took a little bit to get where we are, for sure. There's no question about that. We got a handful of sponsors for it too, which I'm very grateful for. But the most important part is we got the backing of the PIAA and Dr. Lombardi and Lindsey Barna and Mark Myers and all those guys over there. They're 100% in with it. I really appreciate everything that they've done for this. And look, we're going to grow it. We know it's going to be a little bit kind of bare bones-ish for the first year, but this thing's going to grow. We're definitely going to do basketball coming up in March. Hopefully we can add baseball in the spring. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And we're just going to continue to grow this thing year by year and hopefully reach the masses. And a lot of questions from some local radio stations, like, why are you doing this when we're going to be doing these games? We're not preventing anybody from doing their local coverage. We hope they all show up. And matter of fact, I was just talking to one of the McDevitt radio guys before we came on here. And, it's all, this needed done. This needed done from a statewide perspective. There was a brief time where all the games were broadcast live on Penn Live back in the early portion of the 2000s, and that was a lot of success. And that kind of went by the wayside as Penn Live changed over the years and morphed into the company with the Patriot News. And this was something that needed done a long time ago, and I just happened to be the one that was persistent about it. And luckily, we got the backing from Dr. Lombardi, and he's all in, and that's all that really matters right now.
Yeah, persistence paid off, and we're thankful for that. And yes, it is a non-exclusive thing, so we're going to hear a lot of the local radio flavor, which is what we love as well, but also a chance for some of these stations who maybe don't have a dog in the fight for some of these championships to still be able to go and cover these games going through this PIAA Radio Network. So going to be a lot of fun. Again, you'll get a lot more details. There's also going to be a streaming version. You're listening to this show right now via our new YouTube channel. Same thing, you'll get all 6 championship games here on this same YouTube channel as well. We'll talk more specifics over the course of the broadcast as well, and more details popping up over the course of the rest of the week. But let's get right into it, previewing these big games coming up. We're going to go in chronological order as we preview these. So starting with the Thursday afternoon game, Class 1A, the defending state champions, Bishop Guilfoyle, taking on Clairton. The Clairton Bears out of District 7. Believe it or not, their first trip to the state championship game in nearly a decade, since 2016, just for a perennial power. They won the 4 straight championships a little over a decade ago. Let's start there with Double E. We got 2 Erics here. I'm gonna get this messed up all night long. We'll start with Ep here. It's a matchup I think a lot of us are really salivating over. Maybe not the one a lot expected, especially with the way Fort Cherry's been the last couple of years out of District 7. But Guilfoyle making it back again. We're gonna have a great championship matchup here between these 2 teams.
Yeah, I really thought Fort Cherry. We had a preseason #1 in my rankings. I thought they'd make a trip, obviously, to Chapman Field. I was really convinced of that. Things obviously did not work out for them. But this Clareton team, it's reminiscent of the glorious Clareton run. You mentioned how long it's been, so it's been a long time since they were here, but obviously tremendously talented offensively. But I keep looking at that number 80, the points allowed for Clareton, and it speaks volumes about how sort of different and kind of, not that their defense wasn't good before, during the heyday, but it just, when you're giving up that few points at this stage, and you're running through teams like Fort Cherry, and obviously Greenville shut out last week in the semifinals, that's really, really impressive to me, more so than the 600 plus points that they've scored on offense. So I'm really looking forward to a defensive battle. Bishop Guilford, that's one of their hallmarks as well. Bishop Guilford always makes you play a little bit ugly. They kind of muddy the water a little bit, which is exactly the best MO for them to stay competitive in this game and potentially win. But right now, I mean, you'd have to probably lean toward Clareton just because they are a well-balanced and obviously just devastating team, especially up front. So I look forward to a great game, though. It's good to have Clareton back. It's always good to have the Bears hanging around this time of the year.
Eric, you and I got to see them up close and personal in the WPL championship against Laurel, and that was a slugfest, an 8-6 game there. Bishop Guilfoyle in their quarterfinal game also had a tight one against Westinghouse, 7-0, but then both teams mercy rule fashion in the semis, so showing they can win a low-scoring game, or especially like Clareton has done, averaging 48 points a game, they can put up the points too.
Yeah, and what really impressed me about the Guilfoyle game last Friday, had the chance to call that one. Their quarterback, Justin Wheeler, was fantastic. I mean, he ripped off runs in that game of 10, 13, 43, 38. And then he got hurt actually on a run. And Jake Kissel, who replaced him halfway through the year or early in the year for a stretch of games, came in and just lit up Belmont Charter. And they ran some trick plays. They didn't do anything really fancy with the run game. They love to bring in an extra lineman. They love to bring in extra tight ends and just pound you to death. And typically when you see Kissel in there, he's going to run the ball. He's their leading rusher on the team, but he dropped back to throw a couple times and made some really nice passes for this team. This is a Guilfoyle team that, as the season has gone on, and Justin Wheeler said this to us last week, that they've started to believe in themselves a lot more. They didn't really think they were going to be in the position that they were in this year until they maybe got to like the District 6 playoffs, and then they kind of had a little bit better of a belief. Hit roadblocks with Richland. Richland was a really good team. They lost to Farrell in the PIAA tournament. They lost to Bishop McCourt, who was really good this year. And they still, had to replace so much talent on their offense, but they came back and now they're playing their best football. And I think it's going to be, this kind of has a hallmark type game to it. Like this, the last time they met in a final, the first time they met in a final, 1-point game. They've both been in one 2-point games in the playoffs so far. This kind of smells like that to me. I think this is going to be a fantastic way to start the weekend. Lots of talent on that Clareton side. Brandon Murphy, if you haven't watched him, he is fantastic. I love watching that kid play football. And this Guilfoyle team, just tough blue collar, and they love to run the football, and they love to be physical with you, and this ought to be a pretty good game.
Yeah, glad you mentioned Brandon Murphy. 2 punt returns for a touchdown in the game against Greenville. He had the forced fumble when Laurel was in field position to kick a potential game-winning field goal late in that District 7 championship game. He's only a sophomore. He's got over a dozen D1 offers as well. But Bob, I think it really does come down to the special teams, and obviously the return game for Clareton lights out. We've seen it, but they also have really struggled when they've not scored, which isn't very often, in punting the football. In fact, in that district championship game, they had 3 punt attempts, and I think all 3 snaps were not exactly what you'd want to be seeing. So Bishop Guilfoyle, strong in all 3 phases of the game. If it comes down to special teams, you'd probably say even with Clareton's returners, the Marauders probably have an advantage here.
Yeah, I would think so. Just in terms of more of a scheme thing, where Clareton's going to get its punch out of the spectacular. It's a trademark of what Clareton has done. Going back to as Eric was talking about, Eric Appler was talking about a little while ago with that great run they had before, and you're putting a player like Tyler Boyd on the field, and you just give him the ball and say, just go make something happen, and Tyler Boyd could go make something happen. They don't have a Tyler Boyd, but they've got some players, and they've got speed, and they're built around speed, and on special teams, speed can help in the return game. Maybe not as much in other ways, but I think it's 2 coaches who have been very successful. It's also two coaches who have been on this stage before. That's a big, big help at this stage. I mean, whether your team has been here recently, not recently, it's still for the kids a little bit of a different level. It's a little bit of a level of excitement, especially preparing through the holidays. I think that's a piece of this that a lot of people kind of forget about. The week leading up to the semifinals is the week built around Thanksgiving. And so there's a lot of other stuff going on, and it's out of the norm, and football coaches and ultimately their players become a product of routine. This is what we do on Mondays. This is what we do on Tuesdays. This is what we do on Wednesdays. And all of a sudden Thursday becomes a holiday, and you have to figure out what you're going to do because you want to give your kids a chance. So all of that becomes something that you've lived through this as a coach. And so you know how you want to prepare your kids and how you want to play. And I think that's a piece of this that these two guys, in Wayne Wade for Clareton and Justin Wheeler for Bishop Guilfoyle, because they've lived this so many times, they know how to prepare their kids. And I think that's a piece of this that you can never leave out, that being on this stage before is a huge advantage.
They've been on the stage against each other in 2014 and 2016. A memorable game, especially that 2016 game, led to some new rules in terms of how media can converse with coaches after the game. That cool down period put into effect after that contest from 10 years ago. Which coach will be hot under the collar? Hopefully neither one. Hopefully it'll just be a fun, exciting game, start to finish, and a great way to kick off our weekend. The Marauders and the Bears. That is Thursday, 1:00 from Chapman Field, from Cumberland Valley for that first game of the weekend. We go from two teams that we hear a lot about come state playoff time to two newbies in the Class 4A championship that night. Southern Lehigh and Twin Valley both playing in their first ever PIAA championship game. And these two teams, my goodness, the similarities between each other are absolutely incredible to talk about. Bob, we'll let you take the reins on this one. You got Twin Valley team averaging 50 points a game, Southern Lehigh 40 points a game, just very similar in style, in the way that they've gotten here, and a chance to make history in their first trip to a state championship.
Yeah, it is very much of an amazing story, especially for Twin Valley. I've got a chance to do, I think this will be the fourth or fifth Twin Valley game I've done this season. So they're new, but their coach isn't. Their coach is Brett Myers, who took Middletown to state championships in 3 straight years in 2016, 17, and 18. So he's been on this stage before, and he's gone through it, but his team hasn't. There's some amazing numbers that come into all this. Twin Valley, this is their 30th season of football at Twin Valley. 1996 was their first. Prior to Brett Myers taking over, this is his 4th season. They had 77 wins in 26 years. He's got 40 in 4. That's what he's done to take this program to another level. And he is pretty much of a proponent of, if this is working, I'm just going to keep doing it until it's not working anymore. And what works for them is running the football. And they play a lot of power football, a lot of 2 tight end sets with a quote unquote H-back. As I've said about Joey Buckley, the only thing about Joey Buckley that makes him an H-back as opposed to a guard is his number. He wears 9, but if you put a 5 in front of that 9, he would look perfect in that number as well. He's a guard playing as an H-back. So they will line up, they will put 2 tight ends and that H-back on the one side of the field and say, this is where we're going to run. Let's see if you can stop it. And they've got a great back in Drew Engel, and then they've got another great back in Lucas Myers, who is Brett's son. Engel's got more speed. Myers has more power, and they will use both of them, and they will use them both well. Drew Engel's had an amazing season, but Aliquippa did a very good job on him last week. They contained him very well.
Yeah, the coach's son mentality. We didn't even mention that with Bishop Guilfoyle. To get a coach's son there, there's a whole number of
yes.
That coach's mentality.
There's one on the other side of the field tonight for that game as well, in Southern Lehigh.
Yeah, and
that's the quarterback is the son of their coach Phil Sams. There's a lot of that this weekend.
That's incredible how many there are, and I just that when you have somebody who's come up through a program and been on the sidelines, probably as a manager, a ball boy, and just being around and just a different level of intelligence, and you see it with with two different styles. Yeah, as a back on one side or as a quarterback, the signal caller on the other side, Bob. You got to enjoy what you're seeing on both of these teams to be able to see kind of that chess match within the game.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And the irony of that is that Twin Valley's quarterback the 4 previous years was Evan Myers, who's Brett's older son. He's now at Kutztown University. So the Myers imprint is strong at Twin Valley. But on the flip side of it, Colton Sams is not the feature piece of what Southern Lehigh does. Sean Steckert is to Southern Lehigh what Drew Engel is to Twin Valley, a back who is a workhorse back. He had 40 carries last week. I mean, and I think Colton Sams, their quarterback, had 1. So there's not a whole lot of disguising of what they're going to do. It's, again, stop us if you can. But the other piece of that is for Southern Lehigh, Colton Sams has 34 touchdown passes this year. So they will throw and can throw the football if need be. Twin Valley, Brett Myers will tell you we can. They just haven't had to. They blew people out all season long. And so a lot of their starters, including their quarterback and Maverick Foster, who's just a 10th grader, didn't play a whole lot in the second half, and they didn't throw a whole lot in the second half because during the regular season they were up by a lot.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. A balance for both these teams, a big word, but in different ways. You just kind of alluded to it there with Twin Valley. You got 2 backs, both over 1,000 yards, but Southern Lehigh, yeah, with Sam's throwing for 2,500 yards and Steckert, the workhorse back, rushing for nearly 3,000. It does one serve better for another, especially when we're talking about probably cold weather here this weekend. No storms, knock on wood, at this point, but I mean, it does. Both teams, I think, balance is going to be really key, and they're showing it in their different ways.
Yeah, and I think too, Twin Valley operates at a pretty brisk pace too, and that's a big part of their offensive success is the fact that once they find the right pad level, it's very difficult to stop that rushing attack. And Coach Myers will not deviate from the game plan, the agenda, even when they've been under adversity. And this is what I respect so much about both of these teams, really. Twin Valley had just breezed through the first 12 weeks, then had to come back from a short deficit against Susquehanna Township in the district final. They found a way. They kept coming out. They basically just tightened up their cleats a little bit more and went after it and won by 3 scores. And then they had obviously the adversity of Aliquippa charging back in the second half, the third quarter, with a chance to win, and they come up with a big stop to do it there. Southern Lehigh has done basically the same thing. They really weren't that pushed. Yes, they do have a loss, but to come back against Cardinal O'Hara, they were up big, and all of a sudden now you're trailing deep into that game. But they find ways to win, and that's what I respect about both of these coaches and both of these rosters. Is just there's a scheme in place. Bob talked about the unbelievable rushing attacks for both sides. They're going to make you play their style of game. But I think the pace here of Twin Valley, may be able to make hay in this game. I think that could be the difference is they get after it really quick on offense. They probably run a play every 9 or 10 seconds, I would think, something like that. And they just, next thing you know, boom, you're down a couple scores. So this is going to be a big, big test for both teams. Steckert's been unbelievable. 40 carries at that point in the season. When he's battered and bruised. He's got 2,900 yards and a boatload of touchdowns. This is just going to be a whale of a ball game. And I know it's cliche to say whoever wins up front, but whoever wins up front is going to win this.
And ET, both these teams, I mean, honestly, other than the 6A game, I think this is by far the biggest set of offensive linemen that you're getting on both sides with both teams. But both of them are, absolutely dominant in the trenches. And, as a result, they put up points all year.
Yep. Yeah, it's been a tremendous effort on both teams. I mean, I flipped Twin Valley to number 1 probably in week 6. And I got a text message about an hour later after it went to print from Brett Myers, just said, "You're killing me." Because, what I mean? Like the cat was out. And Southern Lehigh's been there too. They held the top spot for a couple of weeks as well, before the loss. But I'm going to have so much fun watching this football game because I think it's neither team's going to want to budge out of their comfort zone. And it's just a question of which defense plays a little bit better.
Twin Valley scored at least 28 points in every game. And in fact, other than why missing an Aliquippa, I mean, those are 2 pretty decent opponents, obviously. Every other game, 40-plus points scored in all those games. Southern Lehigh's only loss on the year came to Northwestern Lehigh, who we'll be talking about here in a few moments' time. That's the 7 o'clock kickoff, the 4A championship game on Thursday night to kick off day one, or wrap up, I should say, day one. We kick off day two with our first guest coming in, bring in the professor himself, Professor Ryan Briggs from Mercer County Radio up there in District 10 area. Professor, thank you for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you for having me, James. Great to be with you tonight, as well as with the Erics and Bob and so forth. Very glad to come talk to you about the 2A game, which is the Friday lid lifter, if you will, to use an old school headline term.
So let's lift the lid on this one between, again, two teams that we're not surprised to be saying are playing in a championship game. I mean, Southern Columbia obviously 10 times in the last 11 years, but Farrell. It's been a while by Farrell standards. It's been only 6 years, but 6 years in Farrell time might as well be a lifetime.
Yes, certainly. Of course, Farrell winning state titles in 1A in 2018 and 2019, and then moved up to 2A due to the success formula. And since then, in 20, they lost to Wilmington in the district title game. Of course, Wilmington went on to the state championship game last year, lost to Southern Columbia, and then in 21, Farrell falling to Sarah Catholic. So yes, the Steelers. It's been a little while for them, but they're playing good football, and I know that there's a lot of excitement in Farrell about this year's team and the chance to get to play for a state championship.
We were just talking about the workhorse running backs that you are going to see in the 4A game, especially with Steckert. Talk about Jules Johnson, though, a chance to obviously write some lore of getting a state championship there back to Farrell, but also a chance to make even more history potentially with a big game on Friday afternoon.
Already over 2,200 rushing yards this year, 34 touchdowns. I mean, yeah, and Farrell certainly has a great tradition of running backs, and he stacks up very well in that all-time history. And he's a guy that's done it on offense, done it in the return game, had a huge kick return in the first round of the state playoffs against Karnes City. When Karnes City had gotten back within 26-13, he takes a kickoff 80 yards for a touchdown. It was essentially game over at that point. His defensive work at strong safety, what a career he's had, and what a senior year he's had, ranking among the all-time leaders in several categories: scoring, rushing, not just at Farrell, but in terms of Mercer County, in terms of among the all-time scorers. Now, I believe he's over 80 career total touchdowns. He is he is a complete football player. Of course, University of Nebraska commit, and wherever they decide to play him out in Big Red Country, I'm sure he's a guy that's could do a great job. But he certainly is a workhorse. But by the same token, and I say this, only 214 attempts this year. Quarterback Aaron Pegues, son of a coach. I know that's a topic that you guys touched on in the previous segment. Certainly, he's the son of head coach Anthony Pegues, and he's rushed it 97 times. But Jules Johnson, well, what a year he has had, and he's the type of guy that can. I know that the Southern Columbia has a great team and a great defense. They've faced great running backs, but Tigers also know that Johnson's a kind of back that can ruin their day in a hurry.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you mentioned, again, another coach's son, the signal caller. Aaron Pegues had an incredible streak here through the latter stages of the year and into the postseason of doing the right thing and not turning over the football. And obviously that's going to be crucial for any team success, but especially for Farrell's here in the state title.
Oh, certainly. I mean, he's only one interception all year, and he's thrown it now 198 times, just the one interception. I'd have to update my math. Well over 150 passes since the last interception, but he's been very accurate in the playoffs. He had 4 incompletions against Seton LaSalle in the semifinals Saturday at Elwood City, so that lowered his postseason completion percentage as he is now 51 of 60 in the postseason this year. He's been throwing it deep. He's thrown it underneath. But he has played very, very well. He is, last year as a sophomore, he was a starter, and he played well. But he was, at times, kind of a first-year starter as a sophomore. This year, he's grown physically. He's bigger, faster, stronger, all of those things. But in terms of his grasp of playing the position. He's a guy very capable of doing it with his arms and his legs, and he's made just great decisions after great decision all year. And I don't think that it's certainly the biggest stage in the state, but I think he's demonstrated that he's a young man that can handle the bright lights, so to speak. I know it's a day game, so no bright lights probably, but he's put together a really good junior season.
Anybody else want to pick the brain of the professor here for a moment?
I don't know what else you can do to pick that man's brain. He is like the fountain of knowledge as far as Mercer County goes. But I'll say this about Southern. I think that, we can all agree on one thing. Like, it's nice when you get these teams that are back here. I'm actually really pumped about the 2 rematches that we have. I'm also kind of happy that these guys are back too. I mean, it's 2 traditional powers. Like, sometimes it's nice when you get a little bit of a break away from those teams that you're so used to seeing in the finals year after year after year after year. It's been a couple since Southern's been there. I kind of like the fact that they're back, and I kind of like the fact that they're going to play an old school rival in Farrell.
Certainly, what's kind of interesting, and it's something I'm sure we'll get. It's kind of a nice sidebar. So 30 years ago, 1995, Farrell played Southern Columbia in the state championship game. Farrell winning, I believe it was 6-0. The Farrell quarterback that day was Anthony Pegues, who's now the head coach. His son is of course, the quarterback now, and the head coach of Farrell back then, Lou Falcone. He still helps out, kind of as a volunteer assistant. And I saw a coach on Saturday at Elwood City, and just talking about the possibility, because of course they knew that Southern Columbia had won already, and he said we can just watch the game film from 30 years ago, because in terms of what they do offensively, that Delaware wing T, but they run it so well. And I think that's going to be a challenge for Farrell coming up this week. The fact that, yes, Farrell did play a couple of wing T teams this year, Sharpsville and Mercer. In terms from the X and O alignment standpoint, when they played Mercer's backfield was totally decimated. Sharpsville was an extremely young team this year. They did play Wilmington, who runs a version of the wing T also. But in terms of, I think with Southern Columbia, the way they run it, that big athletic offensive line, and the fact that they truly are the classic Delaware wing T of a 4-back attack that can really hurt you with your classic wing T plays, the trap and the buck sweep and all that. They also have some other wrinkles too, so I think that's going to be something that the Farrell coaching staff, on a bit of a shorter week, trying to get ready for an offense that they have seen somewhat. But I think the bigger thing is, apart from, I think, instead of not plays but players, it's been a while since they've faced a team that has so many multiple threats. They faced some very good running backs this year. We saw it with Seton LaSalle last week. Carnes City in the first round of the state playoffs did some veered midline option type of things. But to have a backfield of 2 and 3 threats is something that Farrell has not seen a great deal of, really going back probably to, I would say, week 1 against Hickory, with their quarterback Christian Dungy and then running back Kelvin Morrison, although theirs is more out of a spread attack. So it's been a while since Farrell's had to face a multiple threat ground attack like that they will see Friday afternoon from Southern Columbia. But I think that's really going to be a fun chess match, that offense going against defensive coordinator Omar Stewart, who's done a really good job this year with a lot of youth, especially at the linebacker position.
Yeah, I got to call the Southern Columbia's first game of the year, which was Wyomissing, and that was their lone loss. Wyomissing's become Southern Columbia's Achilles heel over the course of the last couple of seasons. And the year before, those two played at Wyomissing, and it was a Southern Columbia team I had never seen before. They had all kinds of problems, bad snaps, all kinds of mistakes that you don't see from a Jim Roth football team. But then you come back to 1 year later, and almost every one of those players who was there the year before is back. They have returned, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's 8, 9 starters on both sides of the field from the team from 2024 that did not get here. And now here they are back again in 2025. This is a team that is really good. Wyomissing was able to handle them, but Southern Columbia had a chance to make a run at them at the beginning of the third quarter. They get the ball to start the third quarter. And we kind of thought at the time that, all right, if Southern Columbia does what they do, they're going to get right back in this game. And they didn't. They turned it over. But it seems as if all those kind of mistakes that they made, they don't make. And it is a very much of a vintage wing T offense that if you don't play it on a regular basis, you can't experience it. And the times I've had coaches say to me, to a Jim Roth wing T or a Bob Wolfram wing T, well, we've played teams that run a wing T, but not like they run the wing T. It's about execution, and they run it precision, and that's what makes them very, very good at.
Yeah, especially on a short week, that's going to make things quite difficult for Farrell to prepare. Professor, we appreciate you joining us. I want to ask one final question before we let you go. In preparing for this game, it's a year-long process. You mentioned Hickory, a great team in 3A that they played early in the year, but Farrell has challenged themselves with a couple of really, really big out-of-region opponents this year. Talk about that and preparing themselves to be in this big game and making the run that they were expecting from the get-go.
Yes, certainly. Farrell had high expectations coming into this year. Not that they always have high expectations at Farrell, but yeah, you mentioned the schedule. Non-conference, they played Hickory, two-time District 10 champs who lost in the finals this year. They really overwhelmed Sharon in the Steel Bowl. Sharon, the District 10 champs in 3A, but really, I think the game. They also had they went down to Steubenville, Ohio, perennial powerhouse, who made the state quarterfinals in Ohio Division III, which would be the equivalent of 4A, 5A in Pennsylvania. They lost down there, but that was a 48-minute game. And then in Week 10, a mercy rule win over Erie's Cathedral Prep, who, of course, is a team that has always been on the state playoff stage. A game Prep had to win to get into the 5A sub-regional, and Farrell took it to them from the get-go. So Farrell certainly has been, the schedule has prepared them, I think, as well as possible. And they faced some adversity this year, losing to Hickory, the loss to Steubenville. Even the last couple playoff games, they were up 16-0 on Seton LaSalle. They get a pick six and then the 2-pointer, 24-0. Seton LaSalle comes back, makes it 24-19, but they didn't panic, end up getting the win 40-19. So they're a team, I think, that certainly they. I know we've all seen teams that come to this round and they've beaten everybody 55-0, and then things get tight and they don't know how to react. I think with both of these teams, certainly that won't be an issue. I know with Southern Columbia, and Bob mentioned the Week 1 game against Wyomissing. I know they had some games at midseason. They had to score in the fourth quarter to beat Mifflinburg. They had a battle with Montoursville. I think with Shikellamy, if I said that right, I apologize if I butchered it, had the lead on them in Week 10. And then once kind of flipped to the playoffs, they played Cal Valley. I wanted to work Cal Valley in there. 41 points in the first half, but it seems like once it's flipped to playoff mode, Southern Columbia has just kicked it into another gear. But I do think that if either team gets behind, I think they both have been in that spot, and I think they both have the wherewithal to keep it from snowballing, if you will.
Well, let's hope the snowballs are all gone and out of its system after the system that went through Pennsylvania here today. Big thanks, as always, Professor Briggs. Check out all of his stuff. Great insight, great stats, great everything. We owe a lot to him, and we appreciate you coming and joining us here as we get ready for state championships 2025.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Thanks to the other guys for all of their work throughout the season, and not just in football, but around the year with all the sports. It's an honor, and hopefully get to do this again sometime.
We'll talk to you soon, sir.
Thank you, James. Thanks, guys.
Professor Briggs, check him out with Northwest PA Sports and everything there with Mercer County Radio. Big thanks to him again for joining us here today, talking about this 2A championship. I want to give Ep a final chance on Southern Columbia, though. 10th title game appearance in the last 11 years for the Southern Columbia Tigers. They missed it last year. It didn't take a long time to come back. And yes, they have not 2, but potentially 3 1,000-yard rushers by the time this game is all said and done.
Yeah, it's some ridiculous numbers. To be honest with you, obviously, I don't know. Jim Ross going for what? Victory number 800 some? I don't know. It just seems
we lost count.
It's just sort of crazy to think, 500 plus wins and for a program. And the reason I really like the Southern Columbia team too, because I think they're more versatile than I've ever seen them. Like I said, Bob mentioned how they like to, shove it down your throats a little bit in the run game, and they certainly have 3 very capable and very successful running backs. But, I'm really impressed on how versatile they are on offense and how they can mix things up and obviously rely on that sturdy offensive line. That's a hallmark of that program. It's been that way since Jim Roth has been around, for 30 plus or 40 plus years, whatever it's been. So this should be a well of a ball game because, Farrell's got tremendous athletes, and it's not going to take them long to find a chunk play here and there and kind of, stick it to them. But I hope the wind is low. I hope that's the one thing about Chapman Field. Right now, I don't think we're calling for any precipitation. It looks like the 3 days will be at least clear, but that those open end zones create a little vortex, and you get some wind in there that could hinder Farrell in this game. So, but I think this is going to be a really good one. I don't think either team is capable of running away from the other.
Summit Columbia, believe it or not, has 24 straight victories in the PIAA playoffs, dating back to championship. Well, there are 7 in a row, that is, from the 2017 to 2023. 25 in a row would make it, win number 10,000, it feels like, for Coach Roth at this point. Right. That's a 1:00 start from Chapman Field on Friday. And again, that's a rematch from the championship games in 95 and 96 that Farrell won both of them over Southern Columbia. Let's get to a true rematch, though, the nightcap, and a dandy it is again. Roman Catholic, Bishop McDevitt, they met for the 5A championship a year ago. It was a dandy of a game, and we have another one coming up, first of 2 true state championship rematches here, Roman Catholic and Bishop McDevitt doing battle in the 5A championship. Eric Thomas, that is. We'll start with you on this one. In general, when you have the same teams coming back and playing in a championship game, what's the mindset on both sides of the field, both as the team that was a victor and a team that was the loser?
Well, this one's a little bit different because, where McDevitt stands, they're a little bit different of a team than what they were a year ago. I mean, Stone Saunders, now a freshman at Kentucky. Sebastian Williams has kind of grown into the role as the starting quarterback, made some nice throws last week. Wasn't always easy for him when the season started. They're more of a run-oriented team. They've got a great 2-headed monster. Offensive line might be a little bit lighter than what it was a year ago, but they still have some pieces that are back from a season ago. But I've said this to other people today, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him just yet. But Rick Preet and I are going to catch up tomorrow at some point. If you're listening, that's going to be on Wednesday. But the Roman Catholic team, and I think Epp might agree with this too. They look nothing like they did last year. I think they're more lethal this year. They just have a different mindset about them, a different approach to the game. Last year they seemed at times in that title game, almost like they knew that Saunders was going to figure out a way to beat them, and they just had to keep trying to throw things at him, and they couldn't quite catch up all the way. And I think it's different this year. I think Samaj Beals is on a different level. I think this Roman team is playing on a different level. I think their offense is better than a season ago. I think they're running the ball a little bit better than what they did a season ago. And he's a year older as a quarterback, so that makes a big difference. Rick Preet won't be intimidated by the atmosphere or, the kind of like the bright lights. You're basically playing a road game. McDevitt's only about 15 minutes away from where Cumberland Valley is anyway. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit different than last year, I think. The Roman Catholic is coming back, and I think of the two there, the one in better shape to win this thing. That's not a prediction, but just compared to a season ago and some of the turnover McDevitt's has gone through this year, I don't know. The Roman team, when I watch them, they look like just a different animal from what they were a season ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that, E.T. If I could chime in, James, sorry about that. We got a chance to talk to Coach Preet this morning. And, obviously a class coach, great coach, and it's perfect for that environment and to kind of build that team. And, he was telling me, before 2019 or 20, nobody cared about Roman Catholic football. They just were not. And he got there in 2019, and he said the guys who were there originally, now they were seniors. And he said, but they built this kind of foundation to get the younger guys involved in the program. And when they left it, it's the buy-in. We always talk about kids buying in, was tremendous. And that game last year, they were not happy with the way they played overall. But but Coach Preet was adamant about tipping a cap at McDevitt. He said McDevitt beat us. They were better. But we just weren't happy overall with how we performed. And having a guy like Samaj Beals back from that situation, and this guy is the pulse of this program, no doubt about it. As he goes, everything goes. And I'm not just talking about on the field. That's the kind of leader this kid is. And ET's right. They've got a couple guys now, like Ayon Steed, who was obviously tremendous. He's an FBS recruit. He's going to Temple. Ash Roberts has been tremendous for them. A versatile wide receiver. You can put him in different spots. He's a Temple guy. And they've got a couple guys up front, too, who are real animals to deal with. But Beals is the X factor. Beals is the guy that pulls it all together. And he's been tremendous all season long. I mean, if you really look, you know, you're going to say, okay, well, they have 3 losses. They're 11-3. I mean, look, that schedule, I don't care what classification. I don't care how good your ranking is. Tell me another squad in Pennsylvania that's going to go 11-3 in that schedule. When you're going up against, they beat Springside Chestnut Hill, and Coach Breed said that was sort of the trigger for them. And it turned right around, have to play DeMatha, nationally ranked. LaSalle, nationally ranked. Cardinal Newman, who they played in Florida and beat in a shootout, was nationally ranked. The team they played from North Carolina, I can't think of the name right now, they were nationally ranked. They lost by a point. I mean, and then you have to go up against, obviously, St. Joe's Prep a couple of times. And an improving Bonner team was obviously always talented. It's just tremendous to see that kind of schedule and to see them come through and be in this situation again. And ET is correct. There are 10 to 12 guys that you can watch on every play and be wowed, absolutely wowed by. And that's the scary thing if you're Bishop McDevitt. Not that Bishop McDevitt doesn't have a chance in this one, because obviously they proved it last year. But this team is a little bit different. This KLH team is a little bit different in just sort of the attitude, the direction, and kind of just the perseverance that they've shown through such a brutal schedule. McDevitt is lucky in the sense that now everybody's healthy. They've been banged up all season long. Their offensive line has probably shifted 6 or 7 times, but guys like Chris Thompson have been there all season. Ja'Kai Logan has been an absolute anchor up front, and their defense is sort of what has kept them, going offensively as Sebastian Williams has kind of taken a next step. So all those factors in, but this is all about, too, on offensively. It's all about them running the football. Desir Jones-Davis, Jerome LaRue Jr., and obviously Maurice Barnes, a talented linebacker. Those guys, that 3-headed guys, this is about establishing the run for Bishop McDevitt so some of those lanes open up a little bit more to a very good receiving core. They don't have any eye-gouging numbers, but Jonte Quick is a 1,000-yard guy from last year, all-stater, who's been banged up left and right, on the field, off the field 1 week. So they should come into this game healthy and obviously with the chip to go after again. So I love this matchup. I'm going to have so much fun watching this one too. It seems like every game we get to, I get more and more excited. It's going to be fabulous. Really is.
Let's hope that
We're on
momentum
Saturday,
continues.
Eric. You're running out of time.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm chatty.
No, we're good. I do want to ask real quick though, because of you mentioned Samaj and how good he's been throwing the football. With that wind tunnel possible effect that you get, is that any cause for concern there for Roman Catholic?
It was if he wasn't such a good runner too. Like he you know what I mean? He'd prefer the pass, but he's not a quick tuck guy. He'll stand in that pocket and deliver. I mean, that's the kind of player he is. So I hope
He's gotten better at that too, Ab.
Yes.
He's gotten much better at that this season too.
I agree.
That's the 7:00 kickoff on Friday night, and the excitement will continue for one more day at that point as well as we continue on our pregame show here on the PIAA Radio Network. We're going to bring in some Pittsburgh flair, as it is a double District 7 Saturday in both the 3A and 6A championships. The legend, the Hall of Famer himself, Sir Don Rebel. Welcome to the program. Don, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, our pleasure. We get to talk with, talk football with the legend himself. And now I'm going to shut up because he's going to smack me right through the computer screen.
Yeah, so easy with that stuff.
We're just going to go and chat straight into this 3A championship game then, Don. And just like the 5A the night before, we have a rematch to kick off the weekend flare. Probably the best game of the 6 a year ago. It would be shocking if we don't consider this one probably one of the best ones when all is said and done. Again, 2 undefeated teams, Northwestern Lehigh against Avonworth, again battling for the championship. This is something I know Avonworth has to have been talking about from day one. Like, hey, we're focused. We're making it all the way back there again.
Yeah, crazy that the 2 games that went to overtime, which is kind of rare in the state championship scene. A year ago, we get rematches of both games this year in 5A and, as you mentioned, this 3A championship game. Yeah, I talked to Luke Neal a couple weeks ago, outstanding senior from Avonworth, and he said that there's no question this has driven his team. The fact that, yes, they wanted to repeat as WPIL champions, but they really, I mean, he said it before the semifinals, after the WPL championship game, that he was hoping that first they would knock off Penn Cambria, but he was hoping that the Tigers would beat Camp Hill Trinity in the semifinals so they could get another crack at him. Both teams perfect here this season, and let's give some credit to Josh Schneider's Northwestern Lehigh Tigers team. 4 straight District 11 championships, 3 straight appearances in this state title game in 3A, and now they're looking for back-to-back titles. And, Duke John Coors had the same amount of success. They have made it to 4 straight WPL championship games in Class 3A, have now won back-to-back District 7 titles, and they're looking for that elusive PIAA crown. 3rd time that they get a crack at it. They have completely forgotten about that 2019 debacle against Southern Columbia. I know you guys were talking about the Tigers. Southern Columbia put a big-time butt whipping on them 6 years ago. But, the outstanding game a year ago that goes into overtime, tied at 30. And the Tigers earned it with the fact that they were able to keep the Antelopes out of the end zone initially, holding them to a field goal, and then they get the touchdown to win it 36-33. So, great game a year ago, and I think all signs point to a dandy again coming up Saturday afternoon.
You mentioned Luke Neal. I mean, his numbers just off the charts. 600 plus on the ground, another 900 plus receiving yards. Even that, just in general, they're throwing the ball with a lot more efficiency this year. Our Lobes. I mean, Carson Bellinger over twice as many passing yards that he had a year ago. That's been just another additive to what this Lobes team can do.
Yeah, for the most part this year, they last year was kind of incredible in that they ran pretty much a pro set offense throughout the regular season, and then starting in the district playoffs and carrying on to the state playoffs, they went Wildcat with the Neal brothers. Nico Neal graduated last year, and Luca, who was his younger brother, they both sort of tag teamed as to who would get the bulk of the carries, and they had tremendous success thanks to the offensive line work. This year, they haven't really used the Wildcat that much. Coach Jonkauer sort of joked saying that they've kept Luca Neal in the garage until they needed him, and they felt that they needed him here in the postseason. But even if you go back to the semifinal victory last week over Penn Cambria, Carson Bellinger had an outstanding first half, threw for over 200 yards. They go pretty much exclusively to Luca Neal. He had 115 yards receiving last week. That's his prime position as a wide receiver, including a touchdown. And then when they went Wildcat, he rushed for 141 yards and 2 scores. I mean, kind of similar, not necessarily how Northwestern Lehigh uses them, but they have an outstanding quarterback in Shane Lay, he's a Marist commit, and he had a big game last year in this championship game. Had a big game here in the state playoffs, thrown for this is amazing, 27 of 31 in the 2 state playoff games for 417 yards and 8 touchdowns. And they have a good running back too in Braxton Lakatosh. So, both these teams can hurt you. They can gouge you on the ground, or they can have success through the air.
Let's bring in Bob here real quick, or anybody can chime in as well. I'm most impressed with Northwestern Lehigh because they, a lot of the skill players are back from a year ago, but my goodness, the number of guys that they've replaced, especially on that offensive line, kind of had to shuffle it around a little bit early in the year, but they've found a lot of success. And again, 2 backs, one over 1,000 yards and one approaching 1,000 yards on the year.
Yeah, I have not seen. I saw Northwestern Lehigh 2 years ago. I didn't get to see them last year, but I was extremely impressed by how well coached they were, and how they go about scheming things. And it doesn't surprise me the way they have kind of put this run together. That things seem to kind of stay in line. And what happens in high school football is you got to replace. Graduation changes everything. So you have players in place that can kind of slide in. And I think that's a product of a good system. And I think it's a product of a great coaching staff that can just replace players who have graduated with other players who have waited their opportunity. And good programs have players wait for the opportunity to play. And I think that's where you get when you get to that kind of a run that Northwestern Lehigh has been on now over the course of the last couple of years.
ET, you saw them up close and personal, both these teams in the championship a year ago. What needs to be the same for Northwestern, and what needs to be different for Avonworth to get each of them to get their desired outcome?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick too, like if Bob and I were going to draft the games that we wanted to do, this was going to be my number 1 pick, because that game last year, it was as good of a state final as I've ever seen in probably 20 years of going to the finals. What needs to be the same for either one? I mean, Northwestern Lehigh's offense last year was unstoppable in that game. And I think that what kind of surprised me from the year before when they played Bell Vernon, they could never get on track offensively. I mean, Quentin Martin had the big touchdown run to start that game, and then it was like it kind of kicked them right in the gut, and they never were able to respond to it. They made a couple of nice plays in that game against Bell Vernon, but it just seemed like they were kind of stuck the whole time. And then you bring him back last year, and Shane Lay, the quarterback, he was like lights out in that game. We just talked about, Roman being a different team. That Northwestern Lehigh team was a total 180 from the year before last year. And it made all the difference in the world in that game. They felt like they could score with anybody that you put on the field with them last year. And I think that needs to be the same way this year, because I don't think Avonworth is going to let up. Now, where I've been more impressed with Avonworth is their physicality this year. And I think that game against Northwestern Lehigh last year in the finals toughened them up more. And I believe that you're going to see a much more physical Avonworth defense. Deal was just fantastic last year. One of the best performances ever by a running back, 258 yards last year in that title game. And I think they need to ride him again. And I will not be surprised if their defense, like we saw in the WPIAL final a couple weeks ago, if there's like some jarring hit that knocks a ball loose, they pounce on a turnover. This Avonworth defense is going to be much, much, much more physical than what they were a year ago in that game with Northwestern Lehigh. They got pushed around last year in that game. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, they shut down the high-powered Imani Christian offense in that District 7 title game for sure. Jaden Jones, a name that you're going to hear a lot on both sides of the football. I had a turnover in that game as well. Going to be another dandy. One of these teams will be undefeated Class 3A state champions come about 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Kickoff from Chapman Field again at 1 for that 3A title game. And then the granddaddy of them all, a game we've already seen, another rematch, but this is a rematch from earlier this year. Let's start with that. Ep, you got to be the history buff here. When's the last time we had a rematch of a regular season game in a state title game?
I can't recall that happening. I mean, I'm sure it has happened, but I've got a lot of other numbers rolling around in my head, so I can't really think off the top. But yeah, it was 23-6, I believe, was the initial score. LaSalle winning that game early in the season, and it's just both teams have gotten tremendously better during the season. I got the chance to see Pittsburgh CC the last couple of weeks, and really impressed. The first thing you see is the fact that I'm really, really short, and their offensive line is probably the biggest offensive line I've seen in my 30 years of doing this. It is ginormous. It's very convincing, and that's really what got to Harrisburg in that semifinal. I mean, it just Chris Black has been working and trying to come back from a leg injury that he's tweaked over and over. You just don't rush for 211 yards against Harrisburg. You just don't do it. Now I know it took him 37 carries to do it, but that 6-7 yards a punch just wore Harrisburg out, and it just you never got the sense, even with 7-0, you never got the sense that Harrisburg could kind of come back against this just powerful offensive line. I mean, you got a guy like Kevin Brown was struggling to get through. Yes, they were angle blocking. Yes, they were double teaming him. But when you have a motor like that, you expect some kind of, and it just couldn't happen. It just didn't happen. And Harrisburg didn't play their best. Don't get me wrong, but 32-14 against Harrisburg was a little bit unexpected, at least from my opinion. So, and they're so fast. I talked about pace with Twin Valley. It's even more so with Pittsburgh Central Catholic. But the way LaSalle College has gone about their business too, and I would put 9 guys on Joey O'Brien and just take my chances with 2 guys up front. I don't know how you stop that guy. Gavin Sidwar is obviously a perfect trigger man for that offense. Coaching's been tremendous. Gordon's done an unbelievable job there. And it's just going to be a absolute whale of a game. I know this last time, Pittsburgh CC, it was kind of a blowout with St. Joe's Prep last year. But I don't know. I mean, I would probably install LaSalle as the favorite, but I just don't know how you get about just convincing that offensive line to just stop working for PCC. It's been tremendous.
Don, you've seen the Central Catholic team up close and personal over the course of the year. Yes, it was 23-6 back in that week 0 game. Central Catholic only had, I think it was 160 yards of offense in that game. But that was also Owen Herrick's first game as the starting quarterback. Chris Black only had, 4 carries, I think, maybe in the game. Big differences from, the opening day 16 weeks ago to what you're going to see on Saturday night.
Yeah, and coaches will tell you too that in rematches, they'll try to downplay rematches from 2-3 weeks ago, yet alone from 14 weeks ago. Both these teams have earned their shot. It's the 10th ever PIAA 6A final, and the first one without St. Joe's Prep. LaSalle College earned their stripes, man. They beat the Hawks twice, once in the regular season, once in the Philly Catholic League Championship. So the Explorers, and they got all that Division, much like Central Catholic, Division I talent here, there, and everywhere, including the quarterback, Missouri commit in Gavin Sidwar. But I think the one thing to try to be optimistic for Pittsburgh Central Catholic, compared to when they played the Explorers back in week 0 at the Wolverina, is the fact that, as you mentioned, it was the very first game for Owen Herrick, the Seneca Valley transfer, didn't play last year, had a miserable game, to be honest with you, in that game against LaSalle College. He has really improved, had a strong game in the WPL championship game, had a better game, maybe his best game against State College 2 weeks ago in the PIAA quarterfinals. So he is much improved. And, like Eric mentioned, the running, the return of Chris Black Jr., had a chance to talk to him last week. He got hurt in the first game. And again, as Eric alluded to, he was in and out, finally came back full speed in the District 7 championship game against North Allegheny. Then in the State College game, he combined in those 2 games 26 carries for 171 yards. But then he exploded last week against Harrisburg, 37 carries for over 200 yards. So that's the X factor as well, especially running behind that line. So I think in those two aspects, the Vikings are a little stronger on the offensive side of things, but man, they're going to need all cylinders cooking going up against LaSalle College on Saturday night.
Now, LaSalle College, the coaching staff was flat out in saying, though, that Central Catholic is probably the best defense that they have seen all year long. I mean, it starts with Ashton Blatt as one of the edge rushers. They got to get pressure on Sidwar to have really any chance in this one, right?
No doubt. I mean, he's an outstanding quarterback. Had a big game in their victory over North Penn. He's had big games all season long, and if you give him time, like any good quarterback, they're gonna hurt you. They gotta, but it's we talked about the Central Catholic offensive line, LaSalle College. It's not like they have a bunch of mighty mites, playing up front as well. They got some size too, and that's a lot of coaches will tell you, game is won in the trenches. And in the trenches is where, if you're just an average fan and you're watching this game, if you get a chance to just not look at what's going on with the football for maybe a series or two and just watch the action up front, it'll be a lot of fun.
ET, final thoughts on this 6A game, and Bob, to jump in as well with any thoughts you have on this nightcap to wrap up our weekend.
The last thing I can say about this, we finally have a new 6A champion. That's all I need said. That's all I need said right there. Finally.
Yeah, the thing I would add is, I mean, you can't help but talk about the fact that they played each other in week one. But the flip side, and it's kind of been mentioned, but in week one, you've got a Division I quarterback in Gavin Sidwar going up against a quarterback in Owen Herrick for Pittsburgh Central Catholic, who's essentially playing his first game. And so it should favor LaSalle at that stage of the season. The difference is we're now 15 weeks later into the season, and obviously Pittsburgh Central Catholic can do a lot of other things. The one thing, if there's an X factor in this, to me, it's that it's the reason why I think there is a chance for a new state champion in 6A, and that's that there's a Gordon back in charge at LaSalle. When Brett Gordon, who's now the head coach, was with his father Drew, that's when LaSalle was on this stage first. That was 2009 in the snow when they beat St. State College, and I still remember that game will remember that game forever. And watching members of the PIAA front office shoveling out the lines so we could see what yard line they were on. That's what I remember most about that game more than anything. But that was coached by Drew Gordon. His son Brett was the offensive coordinator at that time. Brett has now they both were away from the program for a couple of years. Brett has now taken over that program. He was a great quarterback himself, played at Villanova, and it doesn't surprise me that with a Gordon back in charge, that LaSalle is back on this biggest stage for a state championship. Brett Gordon is a quarterback's kind of coach, and he's got a really good quarterback to work with. So it'll be very interesting to see if Pittsburgh Central Catholic and all that size can measure up against whatever Brett Gordon and his offense is going to scheme.
LaSalle and Central Catholic bookending the year from week 0 to the very last game of the PIAA season. 7 o'clock start there on Saturday evening. Before we officially wrap things up, I'm going to pose a question to everybody, give you a second to think about it before I give a couple of thanks here, and then we'll get everybody's answers. We're not going to predict the games. We don't give score predictions or anything here. Most of us are going to be on the call in some way, shape, or form, or covering the game in some way, shape, or form here. So we won't give predictions here. But in terms of what you are most looking forward to, or maybe a bold prediction of something, not predicting a winner, but a bold prediction of what you expect to happen over the course of these 6 games is something that you're really looking forward to. That's what I'm going to ask for each one of these gentlemen. Before we do, again, big thank you. Don Rebel, I'll even let you throw in a prediction, bold prediction here coming up in a minute. But big thanks to Don Rebel with Trib Live. Big thanks again to Professor Briggs coming on earlier with Sports Radio 96.7. Obviously, Bob Lombardi, Lindsey Barn, everything they've done for us with PIAA and getting this up and running. And everybody tuning in for this over the course of the weekend, all the networks that are are going to be helping us over the course of these 3 days, covering some of the games or all the games, and all the local networks as well, going out and covering their local teams. We'll see you out there. We're excited to catch you guys out there, and wish the best for your broadcasts over the course of that 72 hours there at Cumberland Valley. So with that, before we wrap it up, a bold prediction or what you're looking for most coming up over the course of this weekend. Ep, let's start with you, sir. What is it you're looking forward to this weekend?
Typically, when you get to Saturday, the last Saturday of the season, you're tired and you're cranky. I'll be tired and cranky, but I'll also be thrilled by the matchups we have. I think both of those games could be barn burners. Obviously, there's a ton of FBS guys running around the roost there at 7 o'clock in that 7 o'clock game. But as far as physicality, we talk about it. I don't know if it might be more physical to watch that 3A football game, that rematch between Northwestern Lehigh and Avonworth. I think is going to be fantastic. So I am most looking to Saturday, and obviously I'm a mid-Penn guy, so I cover McDevitt a lot. So that should tell you how excited I am for Saturday.
Bob McCool.
Well, we've talked so much about teams that have been here before and have so many state championships. And so the one that's going to jump out to me is the 4A game, because it's two newbies. And to see Twin Valley and Southern Lehigh and who's going to come out of there. And again, because I think in the core of what they do is so similar. And I think it could very well be, it's almost going to be like a boxing match as to who's ultimately going to come out on top of all of that. So I think that's one of the pieces of the puzzle I'm looking forward to. I'm also looking very much forward to seeing up close and personal, rather than just watching film of LaSalle and Pittsburgh Central Catholic going after one another. I like to see them actually see those giant bodies just kind of bashing up against one another. It's going to be a lot of fun. And from a purely selfish standpoint, and I know this is going to sound like BS, but I'm really looking forward to game one tomorrow and working with Eric Thomas. Eric and I have been around this for so long and for so many times. And to my knowledge, I hooked him to call a game with me one time at Wyomissing High School. It's the only time I ever actually worked with him in a booth. So I'm looking forward to working with Eric on Thursday afternoon.
Well, now Eric has to rethink what his thing he's going to be looking most forward to. I'll give him a second to think about that, and ask Don Rebel to give us what he's looking forward to.
Well, to be honest with you, I'll go a completely different route. I'm going to say that I look forward to checking out the coverage for you guys. I think this is an awesome new venture that you guys are all working hard to put together, and I know it's been in the works, and I'm glad that it is finally here. It's probably long overdue, to be honest with you. Going back to, I'm an old radio guy, so you would have thought that this would have been something that would have happened long before this internet thing. But I'm glad that it finally is. So I'm looking forward to all four of you guys and checking out the action, and which should be a great weekend in Mechanicsburg. I will say this, though, I won't wuss out. One game will be either close or go to overtime, and one game will be close or go to mercy rule.
Ooh, I like it. I won't ask which ones. Everybody can figure that one out on their own. Eric Thomas, enlighten us.
I will echo Bob McCool's sentiments. I cannot wait to work with him on that first game. That's actually where I'm going to go for the thing, for the point here. It is hard for me to fathom a better run than Bishop Guilfoyle's had. I mean, everything, basically their football history is from 2012 until now. And that's all with Justin Wheeler at the helm. And I had a chance to talk to him a little bit about that last week, getting ready for the Belmont semifinal. And it is, think about this, 9 district titles in 11 years. They're going for their 6th state title win. There's only 4 other teams in the entire state's history that have that many state titles or more. Southern Columbia obviously is playing for 15. St. Joe's Prep has 9. Archbishop Wood and Berwick each have 6. So for that school, for that program to join that crew potentially on Thursday to start the weekend and be only the 5th team to ever win at least 6 state titles, and it's all since 2012, I think that's a remarkable achievement. And if they do that, they have to be regarded as one of the best dynasties, at least in recent memory, that I can think of. I don't remember a better run for a program. Southern's gotten there so many times, but they didn't win them all early. They didn't have their success really until the aughts. So until they got there with Henry Hanoski and Josh Marks and Latour and those guys that played for that team in the 2000s, then it was all pretty much them winning this every year. I sort of throw St. Joe's Prep out because we can talk about that another time, but we sort of expect them to win every year when they're there. But what Guilfoyle's done for a 1A school to get from basically the ground level up to what they're about to or potentially accomplish on Thursday is nothing short of remarkable. I think that's my big storyline for the weekend.
I did my student teaching at Bishop Guilfoyle, actually, and guess what? They went winless that year. And the following year, I believe, was the first year that they won their district championship. So you can thank me getting out of there, I guess. No, that's good calls all around.
And listen, one other thing real quick.
Yeah.
Don't let F and I confuse you. We really also want to see that McDevitt game on Friday night too.
Yes,
all right. There's no question about that. Yeah.
We do. And I have one final thought too.
Go for it.
Bob talked about the 2009 snow game. So if the snow shows up, I know who to blame.
Yes. Well,
maybe we can get Fort Chapman out there to clean off the yard markers like he did in 03 with Manheim and Pine Richland.
But that's possible. Yep.
Hey, he's got cool in his name, so I'm not going to question that whatsoever. I will say this. Even in a game that has a rematch, LaSalle against Central Catholic, you would almost imagine, people would be automatically like, oh, LaSalle will just win it again. There's really not that mentality. You're not seeing in that game or really any of the games just a overarching of like, oh yeah, this team is definitely the favorite to win. There's definitely favorites in all the games, but no like overarching, no doubt about it, this team should be the one coming out on top. And this is the first that I can remember in quite some time that you didn't have at least one game where that was a possibility. So I'm excited for that. I'm also going to give a little bold prediction that the first game will be a very low-scoring game, like the 8-6, 7-6 games that they played in the state quarterfinals. And then the 4A game might be first to 40 wins. I think that game is going to be the defense optional game of the weekend. Could have some fireworks in that 4A game. Now I'm going to be wrong on both, and that's going to be completely flip-flop, but that's beside the point. We're going to have a lot of fun. Again, Bob and Eric will be on the call for the games over the course of the weekend. I'll be there for all 6 as well on the radio network, flipping the dials and making sure everything sounds as good as possible. Tough when you got Eric and Bob. They have to, mess with the mics a little bit, make sure that they sound really good. Ep, thank you for joining us, sir. Really appreciate the first time we've had a chance to chat, and look forward to more of it this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invite. We'll have a great couple of days here.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, everybody tune in on our YouTube channel. All 6 games will be on there and on plenty of networks, including the Trib Live High School Sports Network with links online and, of course, on lots of radio stations across the Commonwealth as well. For Bob McCool, Eric Epler, Eric Thomas, thanks again, Professor Briggs and Don Rebel. I'm James Dotson saying so long and stay tuned for Thursday afternoon, the 6th